My name's Esther. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you all for showing up. I know the traffic is challenging today. I met Edie. I joined this new home group, Mountlake Terrace, Wednesday night. And I did see Edie there, and I'm sure I've seen her over the years, of course, but I didn't really know her. But what I think is really special about Edie is when COVID hit, she was one of the first people to get a Zoom meeting going, and our home group got on Zoom right away. And that's when I really got to know Edie. She's got a really positive story. I'll tell you that her life just keeps getting better and better. Yeah, I mean, she's got a lot of stuff to share, so I'm looking forward to hearing it. Okay, thank you very much. I'm Edie, and I am an alcoholic. Among a few other things, but I have cheat sheet. Excuse me. So I got sober. My AA birthday is 4/1/1981, and I got sober at 22, very shortly after my 22nd birthday, which is pretty common for us kind of people, huh? So, but I got an early start. So my father, when the whole time I was growing up, me and my sister, he would always give us drinks off of his beer. I mean, this is from the time we were like 3 years old. But, you know, you don't get buzzed, you just get a little drink off of beer. But it lets you know that that stuff isn't poison. It's not bad. It's good stuff. And those grown-ups love it. So it must be really good. So I didn't think anything of drinking. I was raised where drinking is normal. Not to drink is weird. So my first drunk, though, didn't happen until I was about 14. And then my dad kept his liquor. We called it the little room, but it was kind of like a little closet out in the carport. And up on the top shelf, he'd keep all his booze. Well, I knew that my sister had an orthodontist appointment, so she was going to go with my mom, and I'm home alone. So I went out and I just took a little bit out of each bottle and put it in a pop can. You know, so it was a hell of a mix. Because he probably had 10 bottles out there. But I knew if I took too much out of one, he'd catch me. So anyway, that night, me and my neighbor went out in her backyard, and we had a few chug-a-lugs. And to this day, I remember that feeling. That warm, feeling. Didn't taste very good, but that feeling. Oh, God, that was good. But I was a good kid. I didn't do that again because I was really worried I'd get caught. So then I turned 15, and I start babysitting. And I'm babysitting for this family that they got this one child, and one night their friend came with them, this guy, and he was a decent looking guy. You know, I'm 15, he's probably 30. But we strike up a conversation. The next time I babysit, he comes by and helps me babysit. And he brings peppermint schnapps. Well, needless to say, I got loaded on peppermint schnapps. And basically, every time I babysat for them, he'd come over and help me babysit. They had to know he was getting me drunk. And then he'd drive me home. But I wasn't allowed to date because I wasn't 16. That was my mom's rule. So anyway, that went on for a while. And then eventually I was almost 16, and I decided that I would get a job because that was what my family did. The minute you were 16, you got a job. And so my dad's best friend had opened a restaurant, and I applied. He hired me as a bus kid. This was the perfect job for a budding alcoholic. Do you realize that there's people who don't finish their drinks? This was like the biggest. I had no idea there were people who would leave sometimes totally untouched drinks on the table. It's my job, my public duty to pick these up. And we had these beautiful brown, auburn-colored water goblets that were like this big. And they make the perfect place to dump these drinks. and then you can drink them all night long while you're bussing tables. It's not like it's rocket science. So I became addicted to my job because it was really good free booze. And it was there every night. Our specialty was martinis. And some of these women, especially the women, wouldn't finish their martinis. And so now I have a source. And I did that for about a year, and then I got promoted to waitress. And then one night after I was waitressing, so while I'm waitressing, the bartender slips me a drink every now and then. I dated her brother, who is a true good alcoholic drug addict. And so we had some real fun drinks. So she knows I drink. And so she slipped me a few drinks. I no longer have to drink the used stuff. And I'm dating a lot of older men, strictly older men. The whole time I was in high school, I only dated one guy in high school. And I was 16, and he was 17, and he had a full beard, and I looked basically 21. And so we would take turns going into the little markets to see which one of us could buy beer that night. So it'd be like, okay, he'd go in and try it this one, he'd get turned down, then I go to the next one. And usually we never both got turned down. So we were good at buying beer. So again, like I said, I look older. I'm waitressing one night. One of the cocktail waitresses goes home sick, and the bar's full. And so the bartender looks at me and she goes, Edie, you look 21. You suppose you could, work in the bar? And I'm like, well, I got to finish my shift out here. And she goes, yeah, after you're done, just come in the bar. So in the bar, you had a tell. You rang on your key for every drink that you sold. And at the end of the night, and you collected for the drinks, people would say, keep the change or whatever. And at the end of the night, you would balance out your key. So at the end of the night, I got $300 left over after I balanced out my key. And I was only in there for 2.5 hours. So I look at the bartender and I go, this can't be right. Did I bring things wrong? I mean, it's my first night in there. I don't know what I'm doing. She goes, your key was the highest key in this whole bar. She goes, I wish I could put you in here permanently. I go, well, nobody in my section was going to go without their drink if they wanted one. I know what drinks, I know you want to drink. Everybody wants to drink like me. So I made sure all of my customers, they had drinks. And they tipped me accordingly. So, yeah, she would love to have kept me in there. But unfortunately, I was only 17. But by going in there, I got to know some of the local bartenders. And so that gave me permission to go to the local bars. So there were a few of us waitresses. I could go out after any shift and go to Potos's. I could go to the Alpine. There was like 6 bars where I knew the bartenders. They knew me. Hi, how are you? Yeah, nobody checked my ID. So, and I'm dating older men too who take me to bars, and exclusively older men. So, so now I'm 18, and I had to make a deal with my mother because I wanted to move out. It's like, I could have a lot more fun if I wasn't strapped to this house. And so my mother made the deal with me that if I stayed home until I graduated, that all these rules would go away, and we would quit fighting all the time. So that was, again, more freedom. And so I stayed home until I graduated. In the meantime, I'd met a waitress friend named Corky. And Corky was a good drunk. She was definitely an alcoholic. She called me drunk all the time. But she also took me to Hawaii. And I paid my airfare and she paid everything else. And again, it was just, all I did was go from bar to bar to bar to bar. And that's what we did. And so I didn't really enjoy beaches or all the other things that there were. I think we went to one luau, but we were both bombed by the time we got there. So, pretty much drank my way through my teens. And I drank my way through my teens like most people drink their way through being 21. So then I moved in with a gal named Donna. who was older than me and would buy me booze anytime I wanted. So we always had booze in there. Oh, we moved. I should tell you, we moved into a beautiful single-wide mobile home off Highway 99, next to some crappy little motel, crappy little motel. So nothing but the best. And I lived there with her until she moved back to California. And then I had a sister who was very religious. My sister was 11 months older than me. And all of a sudden she showed up on my doorstep and she's like, Edie, can I move in with you? And I looked at her and I went, you want to move in with me? You realize I party, I drink, I can't. She also was very overweight. I said, I can't have all the junk food that you have in the house. I go, I just can't. And so she said, no, I want to have fun. I'm like, well, so I corrupted my sister. And she lost 100 pounds living with me. There was never any food in the house, so it made it a lot easier to not eat, because all we ever had in the house was booze. Then I had another friend, Nancy, who decided that she liked our lifestyle. And so she wanted to move out. And then we started renting houses, the three of us. And we would have parties all the time. And if we weren't having a party, we would go into a kegger. On a rare occasion, I don't know if you guys know about cruising Colby up in these parts, but we go out and cruise Colby and find parties that way. So, it was just kind of, just the whole lifestyle. That was just the way I lived. I lived to drink, and I drank to live. And again, this is before I'm 21. So then I changed jobs a few times, and then I got involved in the eye industry. And I went to work for an ophthalmologist, and the ophthalmologist had another gal working there. Her name was Sherry, and Sherry was 22, 23, and she agreed to lose her driver's license to me. And she looked just enough like me that I could get away with it. So now I got ID. Just made me that much more able to get alcohol. Again, long before I'm 21. Then I left that job and I went to work for an optometrist in Ballard, Dr. Conway. And Dr. Conway was just such a sweet guy, but he was really ready to retire. And so Dr. Conway he saw 2 or 3 appointments a day, hardly ever there past 3 o'clock. And I'm bored. I mean, there's really nothing to do. So I start bringing the large Tupperware glasses with the lids on them to sustain me in the afternoon. Just maybe a little vodka in there, just to get me through that afternoon crunch when there's just nobody there and it's quiet and I'm bored. So I would do that on a regular basis. I'd have my little Tupperware of vodka to get me through the afternoon. So anyway, I'm deciding that it's time for me. My sister got married, and they bought a house. I'm like, well, I can buy a house. I'm an independent kind of. I found out I couldn't buy a house. It takes money. Well, maybe I can buy a condo. I can buy a condo. So I'm going through the little nickel wanyats. Baby remembers the little nickel wanyats. And I found a mobile home for $5,000. It's got my name written all over it. $5,000. It's a mobile home. So I'm like, okay, I'll buy this mobile home. So knock on the door. Well, first I called and talked to the guy. And come by and look at it. I knock on the door, and there he is. Tall, blonde, blue-eyed, and oof, yummy. So I met John, and I bought his mobile home, and I got him in the deal. And so John and I started dating, and John doesn't drink. He's like 24 years old, I think, 23, 24, and he doesn't drink. I'm like, what's wrong with you? How do you not drink? I can't drink, I'm an alcoholic. I'm like, okay. And so we're dating, and he's going to these meetings, and I think he's cheating on me, because that's what guys do. So anyway, so I had to follow him. So I started following him to meetings. And I remember the first time I walked into a meeting, I expected there to be a bunch of Skid Row drunks just, sitting around, everybody looking dirty and grungy. And I walked in, and Valley Terrace is my first meeting I went to. It was filled with laughter. It was filled with people who were clean and kind. And they said things to me like, people don't usually get here by mistake. And I'm like, well, I'm not here because I'm an alcoholic. I'm just here because of John. And I would be really clear. I'm just here because of John. So, okay. Kept going to meetings there, and one time somebody said, well, why don't you go out and try some of that controlled drinking and see how that works for you? So this was about my 22nd birthday that I got those magical words. Go out and try some of that controlled drinking and see how that works for you. So my old friends wanted to get together and go out and celebrate my birthday. So what an opportunity. I'm going to go try some of this controlled drinking and see how this works for me. Because I hadn't really been drinking because John doesn't drink. And I'm hanging out with John all the time and his friends. And so I'm not really drinking much. So we went out and I tried some of this controlled drinking. Every hour and a half I could have a drink. No more. I watched that clock all night long. I had a miserable evening. I don't know what else we talked about. I don't know that I talked about anything else except for an hour and a half up. And that was all I was consumed by when I could have my next drink. But I did it. I only had a drink every hour and a half. Got up the next morning, didn't think really that much of it. And then I went to a few more meetings. And that you're eligible to, yet, really laid into me. And if you don't think you're an alcoholic, look back in your family history. Maybe that will help you. So, my family history. My grandmother was sent here at 16 years old from Sweden, not speaking any English. So imagine being 16 years old, shipped off from your homeland to the United States by yourself to be a nanny. Because her father was an alcoholic and could no longer care for her and had her starving to death in his basement when the family found her. So that was my mother's side. Now, my dad's side's a little more obvious. My father was a high-functioning alcoholic his whole life. Drank every day. Weekends, you sipped his coffee in the morning, it had whiskey in it. My my cousin's in the program. His dad and mom they beat on each other, they beat their kids, they were typical bad alcoholics. And my grandmother on that side was an alcoholic. I mean, everybody on that side of the family. My other cousin on that side of the family died of alcoholism. She passed out in the middle of the floor. Her boyfriend got up in the morning, stepped over her, went and did his paper route, came back home, kicked her, and decided, oh, shit, she's really dead. Oh, excuse me. Anyway, so I kind of have alcoholism on both sides. I deserve to be an alcoholic. So that helped me realize that even though I was 22 years old, I could possibly be an alcoholic. Because I really didn't think I was when I first got here. Didn't know what an alcoholic was, but I definitely didn't think I was one. So I started listening to more meetings, and I don't know when exactly I gave my tearful I meeting and I'm an alcoholic at Valley Terrace, but it was probably sometime late summer when I was finally ready to say, okay, I'm an alcoholic. So then I did the things you're supposed to do. I got a sponsor, kept going to meetings, kind of sort of worked the steps, I superficially worked the steps, worked maybe to the best of my ability at that time. I don't know, but I felt like I was doing the deed. And everything was going along fine. And I got engaged to John, and he was going to get married. I was just going to be engaged. Everybody kept wanting me to set a date. I'm like, I'm just kind of being engaged. And then he cheated on me. Thank you, John. So he cheated on me. I found out. He cheated on me with the gal who bought back that $5,000 mobile home for me. So on the bright side, at least I got my money back out of it. But it also got me out of that relationship. I told John I was leaving. He proceeded to throw me up against the door, and then I knew I had to get out, and I knew I would never go back. So that was a great gift. At the time, it didn't seem like it, but most of the things that happen in this program once you get sober turn out to be great gifts. So next, so I then had to decide: am I really an alcoholic, or was I just John's girlfriend, hanging around these meetings because it was cool to be around these fun people, and we're doing fun things. I mean, John had gotten a settlement, and so he had a really nice house in Mount Lake Terrace, and we rented out rooms to other alcoholics. And so we had a guy named Maureen there, and we had Gary, and Gary turned out to be one of my best friends. And they taught me that men have feelings too, because I really didn't think men had feelings like women do. And those two guys taught me that, especially Gary. Gary died of cancer a few years ago. I decided that I was really an alcoholic, and I wasn't just hanging around with those guys because it was fun. And so I decided to move in with a female alcoholic, Chris, and I lived with her, and I went to more meetings, and there was still this little problem that there were all these men that hadn't had the privilege of my company, because I've been with John the whole time I've been around AA. So I started dating madly. And my sponsor pulled me aside and said, "Edie, darling," because she always called me darling, "I think maybe you're shopping for your next higher power, and maybe you should spend some time working on finding a real higher power instead of another man." Wow. Those were tough words, but they were true. And I had to look at that, and I said, okay. So I found two other women, Christine and Carol, and the three of us went on a quest. And we went to every kind of church or spiritual ceremony you can think of. We went where they'd sing in tongues. We sat in a circle with this woman whose eyes go back in her head, and she talked in some weird tongues. And it was fun, though. It really was. We became such good friends. And we went to Unity, and we found the Course in Miracles. And so then the three of us together studied the Course in Miracles. And we did it once a week, just like a meeting. We allowed other people to come in if they wanted to, and sometimes people would come in, sometimes they wouldn't, but the three of us were there every week. And sometimes we'd make it through a whole page, sometimes we would make it through a whole chapter, sometimes we'd make it through a paragraph. But it was just such a great way for me to find my higher power, who I choose to call God today, and it works really well for me. So then I moved out from Christine's eventually and moved into a place by myself. And I was active in the program, but now I had to really work the steps for me, and I did. We worked them again, me and my sponsor. But then I met my husband. So I had 5 years of sobriety, and I met my husband. He wasn't my husband at the time. It was some new guy. Actually, he had a year. I hadn't noticed him until then. And we all went to a place called Jimbo's after the meeting. And he never came. And so I asked him, I said, "How come you never come to Jimbo's with us?" And he said, "Well, nobody's ever invited me." I said, "Well, you don't get invited, you just go." So we started dating, we got married, we moved to Everett. My job, I forgot to mention this part, I had a job where I traveled a lot. So I was usually gone Tuesday through Friday. And that kept on. So now I'm married, and then we had a baby. So we have a baby, we're living in Everett now, I'm traveling a lot. I quit going to meetings. And I didn't go to meetings for, I don't know, a long time. And I got busy then I had another, okay, so then 2 years later, when my son's 2, we started our own business. Opportunity presented itself. So now I'm traveling even more. I got a baby, and life got really busy. And then we had another baby, and this baby, Aaron, was born with a birth defect and almost died. Spent the first 2 weeks of her life at Children's Hospital. But now she's fine. So she's all good. But I didn't have to drink through all that. I stayed sober. Because even though I wasn't going to meetings, I had a program. I had a foundation. I still worked the program. Then, as my daughter got a little bit older, she's dancing at a dance studio. And there's this lovely lady there named Jen. First of all, there's 2 lovely ladies there, Jen and Heidi, who I'm really glad because they're my 2 favorite mothers that are there. And most of the mothers. Anyway, so Jen's daughter and my daughter are best friends, and we got together. Was standing watching him dance, and she turns to me and she goes, "Are you a friend of Bill W.'s?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I am." She goes, "How come I never see you at meetings?" I go, "I haven't been to a meeting in years." She's like, "Well, why don't you go to meetings?" I go, "I'm busy." By now I own this dance studio, by the way. So I own the performing arts studio. I own a traffic control business, and I travel, and I got 2 kids. And I go, and she goes, "It's a Saturday meeting. Just come with me sometime." So I went to the Saturday meeting with her. And damn Jen, she drugged me back to meetings. So I've been hooked ever since. I go to meetings. I go to Mount Terrace every week that I can. Sometimes I travel. Sometimes I have business obligations. And then I tend to pop in on other meetings erratically, here, there, and everywhere. When you don't go to meetings, you forget what you get when you go to meetings. And even though I didn't drink, there is a joy and happiness and fellowship. And my heart gets filled when I go to meetings, and it doesn't when I don't. So I know what it feels like not to go to meetings. And I don't want to go there again. I love the fellowship. I love the meetings. I love the people. So today, I have 2 children who love me and who spend time with me. And I know that's so rare. I'm an old lady, and my kids are 29 and 34. and they both are very happy to come and hang out at the house and spend time with my husband and I. And that's because I have a program. Now, my husband, who I met in the program, he didn't go back to meetings. And I can tell you right now, and he'll even tell you this, I'm a much happier person than he is. He'll even tell people, she's the happy one. So there is a magic that happens here that doesn't happen anyplace else. I've been able to travel internationally. I just recently had knee replacement surgery. And I had knee replacement surgery because I ran 3 marathons sober. So there's just goals, and there's so much that I've done in my life and been able to achieve in my life because I got sober and I stayed sober and I practiced these simple principles. And I know what the normies are like out there. I see the normies. I work with normies, and they don't have what I have. I feel fortunate to be an alcoholic. I feel blessed beyond measure that I'm an alcoholic. So speaking of being blessed beyond measure, I also run a retreat now, an AA retreat that I took over for Sister B a few years ago. And I say the gifts that you get. When I first got sober, I thought it was just having people to go camping with, and Gary was a hang glider. We'd watch him go hang gliding, and it was just people to hang out and have fun with. But it's so much more. And the people you meet here are such sincerely good people. I mean, I have the best friends ever because of this program. And they have helped me through thick and thin, and both my children are alcoholics. My son has 13 years. And my daughter is coming up on a year here really soon. And neither one of them quit drinking their first time through treatment. Or their second. Maybe even not their third. But I have faith that they are going to make it because they know what life can be like. They've seen what life can be like. They have they have they have friends who have done it, and they're doing it. Ian can see Aaron. Aaron can see Ian doing it, and Ian hangs out with winners. I don't know if you guys know Woo, but Ian's best friend. So anyway, keep coming back because it keeps getting better. You're going to think it can't get any better, and it'll keep getting better, and then it'll get even better yet. As good as it is, it'll still get better if just keep coming back and we'll program. So, thank you.
So let's have another moment of silence. Abandon yourself.